So one of the problems that we still need to address with Olimar is that when a Pikmin is in his lineup, it says in the in-game tips that that Pikmin is protected from damage, is protected from any hitboxes that might damage it. But there are two instances where this is not the case, thus violating the in-game tips. One of these is when Olimar calls a Pikmin for an aerial or a smash attack. And in the frames where that Pikmin is in an attack, but its hitboxes are not active, its hurtbox is active, meaning that it can be hit for damage and potentially killed. And hopefully I can show this with Cloud's forward smash here. As you can see, we have this purple Pikmin that's being used for forward air, and it always starts the attack behind Olimar. And as you can see on this frame, that Cloud's hitbox connects with Olimar's, or the purple Pikmin. The purple Pikmin desyncs from the attack. And although I got hit there, you can see that the Pikmin, the hitbox didn't come out as intended. The Pikmin was stuck there. As a consequence of having its hurtbox be active when it's called for an attack. And this is quite ironic because in this game, Pikmin aerials were made transcendent, which means they beat out all other hitboxes. So where quite a lot of disjointed hitboxes like swords would clank with other swords, Olimar's hitboxes would outright beat the hitbox. And this is a buff from previous games where Pikmin had a weird variety of priority where they would beat out projectiles, but they wouldn't beat out other hitboxes. They would just sort of clank and always lose. This is quite reminiscent of that, except in this case, in theory, your opponent can throw out a hitbox before you do and just beat out your hitbox and potentially kill your Pikmin. Not very nice. Let's say I parry Cloud's dash attack here, or perfect shield, as the game would want to call it, and I go to up smash him or dash attack out a shield, or even an aerial, as previously mentioned. What happens is the hitbox is disabled for Olimar, but not for the Pikmin. So I don't know if you just saw there, but Cloud's dash attack, being quite an active hitbox, hit the yellow Pikmin as I tried to counter-attack after successfully perfect shielding a dash attack. And the Pikmin died. Now, I don't think this is quite right, because in Smash 4, if you perfect shielded a move, obviously perfect shielding worked a little bit different in Smash 4, but if you perfect shielded a move in that game, you were able to punish the opponent out of shield with up smash. Now, there's a second instance where Pikmin are a part of your lineup, but when Olimar is launched at a high percent, the Pikmin don't travel with him, and if the hitbox he gets launched with lasts for a long time, when the Pikmin are unlinked and travelling back to him, they can get caught in the crossfire and killed. As you can see here, the Pikmin get hit, as indicated by these green particle effects. Again, this is a consequence of launch speeds being increased in Ultimate. I'm not sure if the devs accounted for this, but again, I think Pikmin should be compensated in some way. Because, in Japanese, the title of the character is Pikmin and Olimar. Olimar is put beneath the Pikmin. The Pikmin are the star of the show here, not Olimar. I mean, yes, he's the character that you control most of the time, but it's the Pikmin that do most of the work. The third thing that we must address with the Fixing the Pikmin campaign, another inconsistency, is that Pikmin take falling damage. Just something that doesn't really make sense to me. This is something that happens exclusively in Ultimate. It never happened in Smash 4, and it never happened in Brawl. I went back and played both on an emulator and tried this. But from a certain height, and I think the lowest height that I've been able to successfully do this on is this top platform here. Is that, as you can see, Pikmin very slowly take falling damage, and they die. Now, for what reason this was implemented, I'm not really sure. But again, it's something that makes the character, unfortunately, inconsistent, does not provide a smooth gameplay experience. The final thing that needs to be fixed is grab whiffing at the ledge. So after doing certain actions on a ledge, doesn't matter if it's the main stage or if it's on a platform, what happens is, okay, so the Pikmin go for a grab, but I don't know if you noticed there, but all of Olimar's Pikmin are starting the grab animation on thin air. Now, Pikmin, every frame, check to see if they're on solid ground. And if they're not on solid ground, what happens is that they enter, let me zoom in here, what happens is that they enter this falling animation here. Now, because they do this in this scenario, what ends up happening is that the grab whiffs, and yet Olimar still suffers all the lag of the grab. What should really be happening, Olimar should be able to grab Cloud from this distance, but he's not able to. And this can happen as well, like after doing some things. It can happen quite frequently when you get up from the ledge, depending on how Pikmin recover with you, because Pikmin getting off the ledge are quite inconsistent. Sometimes they will pop out like next to you, which is what is supposed to happen, but sometimes they'll also jump from the ledge, which is something that is not supposed to happen. As you can see there, all three Pikmin just kind of popped out next to me, but sometimes when you recover in a certain way, I'm not really sure how to recreate this. It's sometimes the case that Pikmin jump like that. It kind of happened off screen there, but you get the idea. And this doesn't really create much of a smooth gameplay experience either, because you then have to wait for the Pikmin to return to your lineup. And because they're in the air like this, they're also vulnerable, meaning that they can be killed on their way back. So these are sorts of things that we need to address with the fixing the campaign. If you have replays of, send them to me at Fixing the Pikmin on Twitter, and I will post, and I will make sure that the world sees how truly